Om Shri Sai Ram. My loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet and Sai Ram to all of you. It is my pleasure today to share with you my bliss of being one of the many instruments that work at the Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini under Bhagwan's divine banner. We all live in very difficult and changing times, especially of late with the pandemic and some of the geopolitical changes that are happening around us. We often wonder, Swami had promised us a golden age, and Swami had said that Bharat will rise in glory. Where is that happening? When is that happening? Well, I'm here to tell you that the seeding of the human consciousness, as we all know, is a long process. But and Swami Bhagwan has been doing it for his entire life. He did it, his life on earth in the form of the avatar Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And he continues to do so as his cosmic self. And he does it through all the loving legacies he has left behind. One of those legacies that Bhagwan initiated before he left the physical form is the Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini. And I'm honored to be a member of that team where I get to work with some outstanding, amazing, highly successful and educated professionals who are humbler than the humblest person I have met earlier, and who are so dedicated to this mission that they bring this element of loving excellence that has taken us quite a few places, and I'd love to talk about that with all of you. Many people don't understand what exactly Vidya Vahini does. It is a digital platform, a digital education program. Currently, the term is EdTech, or education technology, or technology-driven education. And this is an aggregator of the best practices of Sri Sathya Sai education that have been thriving in the Divine Valley of Prasanthi Nilayam, in the Sathya Sai schools of Prasanthi Nilayam, which are amongst India's top schools in terms of academic excellence. What else these schools bring to the table is the emphasis on human values and character development. Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini aims to create a template that can aggregate all these best practices and plug them into any rural school. At the time of the inauguration of this program in 2010, Bhagwan's clear command was that this education system, these best practices, should be converted into very easy to follow content, training, and teaching aids, and shared liberally with universal access, no money, as with everything else that Bhagwan provides, no charge except the currency of selfless love. There is no other exchange that happens in the Sathya Sai world. And Bhagwan wanted this program to empower teachers, especially rural teachers. And as we know, Bhagwan is an astute investor. When we invest in the well-being and empowerment and upskilling of a teacher, we know that the benefit will reach out to his or her 30 children per class year after year. If that person is a practicing teacher for 20 years, do the math. So this is what Bhagwan had in mind, and this is what Vidya Vahini attempts to do. And I have had a lot of learning in the process since I have joined this program in the second half of 2017. Apart from getting to work with some awesome, amazing people, it has also taught me a lot about the realities of rural education in India, and it's nothing to write home about, really. But there are at least about 100 schools throughout India that bear the divine name of our Lord, Sri Sathya Sai. And they could be Vidya Vihars, Sri Sathya Sai Gurukulam, Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Niketan, and many such names. And as they bear the name of our Lord, the Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust decided that it was our duty to make sure to bring them up to a certain common standard of learning and performance, because they all operate under different managements. They are not directly connected to the ashram, except for a few, such as the Rajamandri school. Most of them are under local trusts. But they bear the Lord's name, hence it became our duty to focus on them and make sure that their standard comes up. So what we do at Vidya Vahini is to create content. And for those who are not from the teaching background, content is lesson plans based on the syllabus. And these are based on the latest trends in pedagogy. such as Bloom's taxonomy, and they're all integrated seamlessly with universal human values. All our content is NEP 2020 compliant, which is the National Education Policy of India. Then, by the way, to which Sri Satyasai Vidya Vahini had the honor and the privilege to make contributions and suggestions, which were respectfully adopted by the NEP 2020. So if you go to page number 11, I believe, if my memory serves me right, and you look up 34.8 point number, you will find that some very familiar words, that there should be an emphasis on selfless service that promotes satya or truth, dharma or right conduct, and so on and so forth. So the emphasis on character development is also an integral part of NEP 2020 as of Vidya Vahini. India is now kind of waking up to the new trends in education universally. These trends might already be in practice at private schools, international schools, which work for profit, but they were missing from the scene of remote Indian education system. And these are called learning outcomes. So all our content is mapped to the required learning outcomes. Every chapter has a designated time frame. Let's say there's a chapter on photosynthesis for 90 minutes. We make sure that we have all aspects of the chapter covered within 70 or 75 minutes so that the teacher is free to pick up what he or she wants for the additional time. Having said that, we also provide training, apart from content, for the professional development of rural teachers. And earlier we were doing it by going personally to rural schools in teams and delivering it in person or inviting them to Prashanthi Nilayam. But the pandemic has forced us to learn many new things, and one of them is online learning and training and through screen sharing. And all our rural teachers who are connected with us have very quickly adapted to it. One of the biggest things, the third big deliverable of Vidya Vahini, is teaching aids. Unlike the West, in India, the traditional view of education was that only children who can learn through listening or reading or seeing are bright. So auditory and visual learners were the kids that were catered to by most educational practices. Vidya Vahini breaks that paradigm and includes the kinesthetic, the tactile learner, and makes learning inclusive by including this element of activity-based learning in everything that we offer as part of our content. Apart from the human values, so we have created a methodology, and we like to call it the 7 asset methodology. And it includes things that teachers will know everywhere in the world, but it has the Sri Satyasai flavor. So apart from an inquisitive question or an interesting aside or a day-to-day relevance, there is, of course, the main script, questions to assess, activity-based learning, and the most important cherry on top is the human values component. Because Bhagwan's command to the team that started Vidya Vahini was to make sure that this learning paradigm moves away from rote learning to a system which is very inspiring, which is very insightful, enjoyable, and participative. So IIEP, inspiring, insightful, enjoyable, and participative. And this trend should not be limited only to the classroom. It has to extend beyond the classroom to the corridor, to the campus and the community. So this template that a lot of brainstorming has taken place to create this template for IIEP across the 4 C's of classroom, corridor, campus, and community. And we have created a turnkey template or a model that can be plugged into any school depending on their level of preparedness. So while we were working to do all this, thinking that our first target audience is the Satyasai schools of the country, unknown to us, our good work was catching the attention of many decision makers and policy makers in the corridors of power in New Delhi. And last year, our parent body, the Sri Satyasai Central Trust, signed a very significant and historic memorandum of understanding with the Government of India, with the NCERT, the National Council for Educational Research and Training, requested that all this content that we have created, the digital assets, be kindly shared or offered to the Honorable Prime Minister's Vidya Dan initiative on Diksha. Diksha is an acronym, Digital Infrastructure for Sharing of Knowledge, and it is the Government of India's initiative to democratize and universalize access to good learning aids for everyone in this country. And I'm very pleased to inform you that today, in this entire country, Sri Satyasai Vidya Vahini from Prashanthi Nilayam is the single largest contributor of digital assets to Diksha at a national level. which is accessed lakhs of times, hundreds of thousands of times each month by teachers who are looking for good material to teach their children enhanced and enriched teaching learning outcomes in their classrooms and their corridors. We were barely done with this, and when they saw the quality of the work that was coming out of Prashanthi Nilayam, there was a request, immediate request from the Government of India to me to share the email ID of the Central Trust Managing Trustee. And the moment I WhatsApped it to them, interestingly enough, within the next 2 seconds, I received an email. So obviously the draft was ready, and I was copied on the email that would address to the Central Trust Managing Trustee, requesting the Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust if Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini could take over and partner with the government on a brand new initiative that the Government of India is obliged to comply with as part of National Education Policy 2020. And this is an initiative called Inclusive Education, which is for children with special needs. And this is an area that is very nascent in this country, hardly addressed. There are many pockets of individual excellence run by private NGOs, but there is nothing at a national level, and there's absolutely nothing on this theme or this topic on Diksha. So fast forward to yet another MOU, which is going to be the first of its kind, where Prashanthi Nilayam will lead the way to provide digital assets for children with special needs by making learning inclusive, based on the Universal Design of Learning, popularly known as UDL. And it will also provide teaching learning aids for not only the children with special needs, but also their teachers, their parents, their caregivers, their siblings, policymakers. It's a 360-degree focused program, and it requires very specialized amount of a specialized training, experience, and learning to deliver. And the one recurring theme that kept coming to me from the government when I was engaging with them was that they had seen the loving excellence, the highest levels of professionalism that were demonstrated in the content that was published on Diksha from Vidya Vahini. But they felt that this was such a sensitive area because there are millions of children who have special needs in this country, and there's no one umbrella, comprehensive umbrella, where all their needs can be provided for and made accessible to them in terms of learning aids and so on. And they felt if anybody can do it, Sai can do it. Those were the words, and they were so touching personally for me to hear that that compassion, the empathy, a certain degree of kindness and respect and acceptance that has to be the attitude of those who work on this work. It's not a intellectual gymnastics we are looking for. It's not just a academic exercise. It has to be exactly what Swami says, a perfect balance of the head, the heart, and the hand. EHV, 3HV that we talk about. So now, with the grace of God, the Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust has just approved this massive project, which is going to go on for several years, called Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini Inclusive Education. And I'm sure it will be announced very formally in the near future. But while we are speaking of this, I'd like you to understand that in a country of such disparity and in a country of so much of pluralism, where all extremes coexist, but there is a lot of pain and suffering also. And you can go to India's financial capital and you can forget, you can't imagine that if you drive 300 miles outside of Mumbai, you will reach areas that still nobody speaks English or has access to an English newspaper. And that has been our experience while working with rural schools. We realized that the main obstacle to their development is the fact that they have not been exposed to English. And how to take English how to bring them into English learning classes. And we did an extensive study of what was available for learning English for rural teachers. And we found most of the apps and the tutorials that were available online are geared for people who are looking to go abroad for studies or appear for their TOEFL exam and qualify for a university in the West and so on. But none of them really address the needs of vernacular speakers whose syntax, grammar, and linguistic patterns are deeply influenced, obviously, by their mother tongue. So we created, with the grace of God, we have amazingly qualified people in this program who are literacy and language experts, working for organizations such as the United Nations. They sat and made and recreated a complete comprehensive program and deliver it. This is delivered over the phone, and this program is called Phone Your Friend. So we have volunteers all over the world who call their buddy, a rural teacher, and deliver a 20-minute lesson 3 times a week. And we have teachers in rural India who are growing by leaps and bounds in their understanding of the English language. We find most of our teachers in rural India very shy to speak English. It's a foreign language to them and is something very modern. And so when we start this program to teach them English, they are very hesitant in the beginning, and slowly we build their confidence because it's in very small lessons, very daily use English, and they start picking it up very fast. And we find that very quickly the same teachers who were the shyest teachers in the school become the champions in the school. And they start being masters of ceremony. We have so many examples and stories of teachers who then get called upon by the principal whenever there is an external dignitary coming for a science fair or an annual day function to be masters of ceremony because because they are the only ones in the school who can speak English. In Maharashtra, we had an Adivasi school where the principal said he wanted to learn English because nobody in that entire village spoke English. So when the principal started learning, taking this Phone Your Friend classes, and he reached a certain level, basic, elementary, intermediate, and so on, he felt confident. And for the first time in the history of their village, they asked someone to get them an English newspaper. Can you imagine? India has been independent for 70 years. So they only used to get Marathi newspapers. And they got an English newspaper. They took picture of the principal reading the English newspaper. And when our team from Maharashtra, Mumbai, they visited this Adivasi village, at the gate of the village, there was a band to welcome them with turbans for all the men and women because they wanted to honor these emissaries of God who had empowered and given them a very fresh perspective and a new opportunity in life. Such is the power of serving Swami's prasadam in the form of the English language to rural India. And what we take for granted is something very unique, is very special for people who have so little. Now, I want to tell you, these are all statistical facts, and I know they're kind of boring, but I want you to know that behind everything we do at Vidyavahini, we experience Swami's loving presence and intervention at all steps in all things big and small. The first thing is Swami has gifted us 2 passcodes, and these passcodes open every door for us. The first passcode are his initials. The moment I call any external agency and I say to them, I'm calling from Sri Satya Sai Vidyavahini, there is such a reverence and joy in people's voices. And you have to believe me, there are times when people start crying because either they were praying to God, or they wanted a sign, or they were praying to Swami. These are complete strangers. They are not necessarily people from the Sri Satya Sai universe. So the first reaction is always very interesting. And the moment I say the word Prashanti Nilayam, I have opened the second golden key. And living in Prashanti, working in Prashanti, sometimes we forget what a paradise and the power center that we are inhabiting. Because even in Delhi, even with the various agencies, we found the moment we say this program is out of Prashanti Nilayam, everybody takes us so much more seriously. And I think what more can we ask for? Because Bhagwan, all his entire life, all that Swami did was to serve, love, and care for us and everyone. And nobody in their right mind can deny the inclusivity, the universal access, the absolutely zero cost to anything that Bhagwan does. That has created such a sterling reputation for the insignia. I call it the divine insignia of Triple S, that wherever we mention that we are from Sri Satya Sai Vidyavahini, we acquire an aura. And people take us a lot more seriously than they would if I had said I'm calling from a certain social welfare program from Koramangala, Bangalore, or from Marine Drive, Mumbai. It would not have the same ring. The sacredness and the powerhouse that is Prashanti Nilayam, the spiritual capital of the universe, is something that is hard to miss. And then the reaction is amazing. I want to share with you that we have some of the finest, most accomplished people in our Phone Your Friend program. We call it PYF, the English program. And one of them happens to be the director of operations of the biggest, one of the largest company in the world that has made it so big during the pandemic because it is delivering all the online because of the online shopping. And this brother, who has my namesake actually, his name is also Karuna. He heads their, he's the director of their operations, and he teaches English to one of our teachers in a Sai school at Bagepalli in Karnataka. So as his student was progressing very rapidly, and this teacher, Srinivas sir, was learning English fast, the brother who was teaching, despite his high-profile job and his all his professional commitments, he was like, I don't want to be unemployed, so please give me one more student. So there are so many of our mentors who have multiple students. And one of our mentors in UK and his wife both teach two students each, I think. And one day during the pandemic, the UK announced a little relief in the lockdown, and it was a sunny day, which is a rare thing in the English summer. And they so badly wanted to just go out for a stroll and have their lunch out, but they had an appointment on the phone, WhatsApp call with their mentees in India. And they felt Swami's work is definitely far more important, so they did not want to miss that call. And they said, okay, whatever it is, we'll let go of the desire to go for a walk in the park and have our lunch outside on a nice sunny English summer day. Just as they thought so, both of them had their individual phones ping. And there was a message from their respective mentees that both of the mentees asked if the class can be rescheduled. We find that we truly have a boss in Bhagwan. He truly is the director of Sri Satyasai Vidya Vahini, and he guides everything big and small. A few days ago, I was sitting in my office, and one of my colleagues said that she needed a little bit more reinforcement on her team to create math content, and she was short of people. If I knew somebody who we could train, I told her I would pray. And I left my office to go for lunch, but on my way to lunch, I stopped at Ganesha in the mandir, and I left my prayer at Ganesha's lotus feet, and I sought help, and I said, in this team, we require a person with these qualifications. It would be nice if you can help, please. I walked out of Ganesha Gate, and across the road, I see a dear sister from Anantapur College who has just finished her tenure as a professor there. And we both waved at each other. We crossed the road talking to each other, and we both said the same thing. I said, I wanted to talk to you, and she said she wanted to talk to me. Long story short, she's already contributing amazing work to the math team on Vidya Vahini. And Swami manifests whoever we want, whatever we want, it just comes to us. I also want you to believe every word of what I tell you, that once the government asked us for if I could share the address, email ID of the managing trustee of the Central Trust, because they wanted some help with inclusive education project for children with special needs, I hung my phone within 24 hours from around the world, out of the blue, unsolicited. People kept calling me and telling me either about themselves, that they were IE experts, they were professionals who work in the area of special education, or they knew of someone who worked and that person wanted to know if they can do anything in Vidya Vahini. It's like Swami made a Telegram group or a WhatsApp group blitz to everybody who's an expert in this area to contact us. And the funniest was that we have a great partnership with a very big accounting company, an American accounting company based in Hyderabad, Gachibowli. They have offices in Gurgaon and Bangalore as well. And this this IT and accounting firm has Sri Satyasai Vidya Vahini as its largest CSR partner. So the CSR head of this company calls me out of the blue, and I was not expecting a call. And he said, I'd really like you to connect with the person. And he gave me a name of a lady in Bangalore. I said, okay, I will connect, but what is this regarding? There has to be a context. He said, no, just talk to her. I said, about what? He said, no, she does very good work, just like you all do very good work. I feel there might be some synergies. She works in the area of autism. And, the bells in my head went off. So this person who he introduced me to is one of the persons who has guided us so extensively in designing this project that we are going to roll out very shortly with Bhagwan's grace in the service of this entire nation where children with special needs have not been served. My take on the whole situation is that enough parents and enough children have prayed, and all those prayers have touched Swami and reached his heart. That is why Bhagwan is going to take that one big leap in this country and address the needs of children with special needs. For those of us who are not exposed to this area, we do not understand the pain and the suffering and the sadness of those families who have to take care of children with special needs and don't have the means and the techniques and the learning of how to manage. So Swami Bhagwan took it upon himself. Just like when there was no water in Rayalaseema, who took it upon himself? First, Swami made this point clear to many governments, and when no one did, Bhagwan took it upon himself. So it is such an honor for my colleagues and I, or my fellow volunteers and myself, to be part of something that Bhagwan has chosen to lead in this country. Whatever little we can do, like that, the squirrel in Ramayana, we are so honored that Swami gave us this chance. Now, what kind of children do we serve currently? This is a story I love to share. This is a school in Haryana, an all-girls school. And when this school started, the children came from a very disadvantaged slum nearby. The school is beautiful, very well laid out with excellent infrastructure, and they've tried to sort of replicate the Prashantiniliyam model in scaled down model. And it has beautiful sports facilities because Haryana is a state in India that produces a lot of sports persons. When these children started coming from this particular slum, they were in a very bad shape, from head lice flowing to matted hair, unwashed faces, unbrushed teeth, all messy. And it's not because their parents were only because their parents were poor or illiterate or these were first generation learners. Not quite. It's because what their parents really did. So their parents were neither like, you hear of stories, their parents are beggars or they are plumbers or they are weavers. Their parents were in a very unique profession, namely stealing. So they came from a slum where thieves or robbers really lived. And their parents' job was to masquerade as sadhus or holy men in the daytime and go looking for bhiksha. So they'd carry one little chumta and some cymbals and make some godly noises and ask for alms and take this to their family. But while this is actually a professional recce, while doing this, they would check out what all is there in that compound or in that house which can be easily stolen, including fruits, vegetables, garden hose, garden furniture, anything that can be removed and resold or used. At night, they would strike and take this away. In that school today, beautiful children are studying. They look so neat and well behaved, well spoken, and the alumni is doing so well. Many of the children from that school are several of the alumni after clearing grade 12. They have taken up the 4-year BSc nursing program at our nursing college at Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Medical Sciences in Whitefield. And they are working in premier institutions, including one girl, I think she works in New Zealand as a nurse. There have been engineers coming out of this school. This is the transformation that is happening because of Sri Sathya Sai education pattern model, and is happening like all things that Bhagwan did with absolute silence. There is no fanfare. There is no promotional thing. At the most, we go to the mandir. For us, the greatest thing is to offer something, a card at Bhagwan's lotus feet and pray for his blessings. But we are not like some other agencies where we'll go tom-tomming what we are doing. Bhagwan has been serving humanity selflessly through his instruments, and we're only so glad that we also get to play a tiny part. And it's a very long-winded process. Education requires a lot of time to see outcomes. If we focus on why isn't the world turning around immediately and why isn't everyone turning into a good person, it's inevitable we are going to be disappointed. But if we focus on the process and make that process our sadhana, the bliss is immense. You can taste the sweetness in your mouth because Swami guides every step. The synchronicity that happens in Prashantiniliam is something I find very hard to explain to somebody else. It's almost like when I'm thinking in my office, I need to write an email to someone, I get a WhatsApp message from that person right away. I'm sure it happens in your life as well when you're tuned to Swami. At times like this, we know we are only playing a part, a small part. And the sooner we realize that and stay humble, simple, united, the better it is. Because the only doer in everything that happens in Bhagwan's name, and for me, particularly right now at Sri Satyasai Vidya Vahini, is an outcome of His grace, is an outcome of Swami's will. It is like literally He is running that program. We are all incidental to the process. We are enjoying the ride. We are feeling His presence. We feel so united and touch wood. And we feel so harmonious and well. And everybody's out to support everyone else. And we are all equal. We are all volunteers. And we all report to this divine boss who sits not only in Prashantiniliam, but also in each of our hearts. And I think that is such a beautiful feeling. I really can't describe it to you. It's a spiritual high. As a young girl, I always dreamt of living in the Himalayas and meditating in a cave. Today, when I sit in my office, I have those moments, those aha moments. It just can't get better than this, Swami. So many children are benefiting because of His grace. So many teachers are knowing how to teach in the pandemic, using a ready-to-use PowerPoint presentation, a video. The entire lesson is mapped so beautifully. The teacher has learned through Vidya Vahini how to do screen sharing, how to retrieve that particular chapter from our learning management system. We use a Moodle LMS now. They are able to teach. The child is able to borrow a smartphone and learn in the pandemic. Growth is happening. Hope is there. Joy of learning is still there. And children have something to look forward to. Some years ago, we were invited by a think tank of the Government of India called the Niti Ayog. Niti stands, as you must know, National Institute for Transforming India. And they invited us to make a presentation to the education vertical to explain what Vidya Vahini does and what it can do for rest of Bharat. So we went to Delhi and we were given a 45-minute slot. And we prepared a short presentation to keep rest of the time for any question answers. As we would have it, we were sitting in that room with the entire education vertical of the Niti Ayog for 2 hours and 45 minutes, telling them all about how actual rural schools are experiencing total transformation. And then we received a request from the Niti Ayog if we could help out with the Prime Minister's aspirational district program, where the Government of India, out of the 750 districts or districts of India, has identified a few 150 odd districts that are really behind the national average in terms of learning outcomes, literacy, financial inclusion, girl-child health, women's health, and so on. And in this connection, we started this program in Tamil Nadu in an aspirational district called Virudhunagar. And we have very successfully, with the grace of God, completed one block. And we are now scaling it in the same block and extending the program to the rest of the blocks of Virudhunagar as per what you might know as the Fibonacci code, but which is actually the Gayatri Chanda or the meter of the Gayatri mantra. So we are following a mathematical model, an algorithm, which is in sync with the beat of the universe. And we want to see how this experiment unfolds over a period of time. We have had 2 different district education officers that we have so far dealt with, and everybody keeps going back to their teachers to ask, how do you find the Sri Satyasai Vidya Vahini interventions? And all the teachers, unanimous answer, they love the program and they find it very beneficial. But when I ask these teachers, what do you like the most? You know what they tell me? They say the volunteers of Vidya Vahini who come, they are so highly educated, they are so successful in their personal lives, yet they are so loving and humble and nice to deal with, and they treat us with so much of respect. Dear sisters and brothers, in the end, it's all about human interaction. It is how we treat people. And how did Swami treat us? With unconditional love and complete acceptance, regardless of what goofiness we did and what mistakes we made in our lives. If we could just, if we are able to extend that an iota of his kindness, his inclusion, his universality, his unconditional love to a teacher in rural India with whom we have no connection except that he or she is an employee of the Tamil Nadu government, that bond where Swami says on the inside we are all same, the divine spark in everyone, we feel such a strong connect. That's when we experience Advaita. That's when we experience the oneness. I really don't need to go to that Himalayan cave, although if it was comfortably furnished, I might consider for a holiday. But long term, the best Himalayan cave for me remains Prashanti Nilayam, because the fountainhead of all power, all grace, all love, all glory of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba is centered and concentrated here. And this is the motherboard from which we draw all our inspiration, and we learn so many things. In one of our Tamil Nadu Satyasai schools, we every year were sending these teaching aids, because I told you that we have one of the biggest partnerships with a very big American company. And we would make beautiful teaching aids mapped to the lessons in science and math and language, so that children who might do some activity-based learning, hands-on learning. So in one particular class, there was a child who was very restless. This child was disruptive. This child was getting sent to the principal's office all the time, or half the time standing outside because he was punished for bad behavior. And one time, when the teacher was opening these boxes that arrive by courier to all the schools that are part of the Sri Satyasai Vidyavahini program, there was a model for, I think it was a solar panel generated little generator or something for a physics chapter. And nobody knew what to connect to what, and they were struggling with the instructions, like, the manual, how to fix it and how to make it work. And this child, who was always otherwise in trouble, he suddenly, this thing caught his attention from the corner of his eye, and he went forward and he said, let me try. And I think perhaps somebody in his family was an electrician, or he was inclined towards this sort of work. He just made a few connections and he pressed the power button, and the light came on, and the little plastic fan started to rotate, and everybody clapped, and he became the hero of his class, because he was a hands-on learner. He was a kinesthetic learner. And this, can you imagine world-class teaching aids reaching the deepest, most remote schools by courier, that the courier doesn't mostly deliver in these schools. So we have to pick a Sai center, which is in the nearest town, to receive this courier, and then the school comes to pick, because some of these schools are so remote. And this is the kind of prasadam that Swami is giving to all the schools across the country. And now, with our presence on Diksha, all this has become available to the entire country. EdTech is a space, as those of you who follow the business news will see, that this is the area of greatest growth, economic growth, biggest consolidation of all kinds of tuition services and EdTech services. And there is huge monies to be made in it, thousands of crores of rupees. And like everything else, like his healthcare, like his water, our beloved Bhagwan provides things which are way better than anything we can imagine to everyone, regardless of their race, religion, affiliation, nothing. Everyone has equal access to the best learning aids, the best content with multimedia embedded, colorful videos, nice PPTs, animations, human values, activity-based learning, all free on diksha.gov.in. That is the Government of India's website that is accessible to teachers and students and parents all over this country. Incidentally, we have uploaded about 5,000 digital assets already, and these cover every single chapter of the Central Board of Secondary Education. In India, we call it CBSE. CBSE syllabus from grade 1 to grade 8 for environmental studies, for mathematics, science, and social studies. And while I speak to you about CBSE, on the side, We are working day and night. Volunteers of Sri Satyasai Vidya Vahini work day and night, and we have also completed the same subjects, and we are in the process of completing for Andhra Pradesh, our state, the state that the avatar chose to be born in, and hence is extremely special to us, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana state, and Gujarat. All this syllabi is also getting completed and will eventually be uploaded to Diksha. And with the grace of God, we are very confident we will have our own tenancy on Diksha. So when you go to Diksha, you don't have to search for us. There will be a special slot for Sri Satyasai Vidya Vahini. That is the grace of God that has got this content to that level that all our content is first scrutinized by the top reviewers at NCERT at the central government level and then approved for publishing. And so far, we have not had a single decline. We have about 200 little assets which are pending in the pipeline because there is a technical issue with Diksha. It has nothing to do with the content. Everything else is up and running with the grace of God. I think in Kali age, Swami has said the best way to experience spiritual growth is by serving everyone selflessly. Ultimate outcome of this selfless service is self-transformation. I can't think of a more visionary spiritual leader or master than our beloved Bhagwan because he made even this service so digital that in the pandemic, even when we can't go out and do anything, sitting in our desk, sitting at our home with a chair and a laptop or a smartphone, most of us are able to work as much as we want and help as many people as we want. And when Swami started it in 2010, nobody had envisaged that EdTech will become such a huge thing. And no one knew of the pandemic. But what is it that he doesn't know? Who is the master of time, the creator of the universe, the love of our life, the force that inspires us to wake up every day with a smile and take on the next task and ask him, Swami, thank you so much for including us in your mission, for giving us an opportunity to do something under your banner. What a privilege. What a moment of, what an honor. I can't imagine, nor can my 1,200 and counting colleagues imagine any greater honor than to be an instrument in his hands and to serve our beautiful motherland, Bharat Mata, by serving her children who are most deprived, who can't imagine being those rich children who will have a tablet and they will swipe and a superstar will come and tell them this is how a circle is formed and this is the circumference and this is the radius. All this Bhagwan is giving these children and is giving us the chance to participate. We remind ourselves consistently that we are here for the right. We are here for the joy. The process is our sadhana. It is us who benefit the most when we participate in Bhagwan's work without looking for recognition, credit, crown, glory, or a title. And to work under his insignia of Triple S and to work out of Prashantiniliam, a program that is headquartered and anchored at Prashantiniliam is bound to succeed. We are so grateful we are part of the entourage. Thank you so much, Swami. And thank you all for joining me in my bliss and understanding what it is that makes us so excited about Sri Satyasai Vidya Vahini. I believe it's one of the best kept secrets of the ashram, and today I gave you a glimpse of what we do. We are using our, by the way, our English program, which is so successful, is right now has been converted into an app so that it can, again, like everything else on Diksha, this can also be as per the decision of the Central Trust, our parent body. This can also be dedicated in the service of this nation so that youth in Tier 2 India who have many other skills but are unemployable because they lack English skills can comfortably download this app from Google Play Store. It's free of cost. It's Swami's Prasadam. They can hone their English speaking and English reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills and become employable in many areas such as marketing, hospitality industry, aesthetics industry, tourism, wherever, driving, and so on. And we are hoping that Bhagwan's Prasadam through this digital method can be delivered to as many people as possible. And obviously, we didn't even realize the scope and the credibility of the program till, with Swami's blessing, the United Nations recognized the Sri Satya Sai Vidya Vahini as a model program that is replicable, sustainable, and scalable and ideal for the developing world. So I don't know what else we can ask Swami except for to make sure that we never grow any ego and pride and think too highly of ourselves, because we always have to remember it's Swami who prompts us to do things the way they are being done. May we always stay united. And I invite you to this glorious program. Please participate if you like. It's just joy and bliss, but word of caution, it's a highly professionally run program. It's based on the highest standards of technology, pedagogy, and human values. It's a great intersection of all these three. So a lot of unlearning, upskilling, relearning is involved. And if you're up to the task, you know where to find us. Prashanti Nilayam will always remain where it is, in the heart of India, the spiritual capital of the universe, in Puttaparthi, Anantapur district of India. Thank you, and Jai Sai Ram.